According to the United States Surgeon General, we are in the middle of a loneliness epidemic. 1 in 4 adults report feeling completely isolated, disconnected, unseen. The statistics are alarming. The headlines are loud. We are told that disconnection is one of the greatest threats to modern health. But here's the part no one really talks about. You cut people off on purpose. You looked at your phone. You saw their name. And instead of answering, instead of explaining, instead of trying one more time, you decided, not today, not anymore. And the strangest part, you didn't feel lonely. You felt calm. You felt lighter. You felt something you hadn't felt in years, peace. So when did that change happen? When did you become the person who walks away without drama? Because you weren't always like this. There was a version of you who was endlessly available. The friend who answered at 2 a.m. The family member who absorbed tension at gatherings so no one else had to. The partner who carried emotional weight that wasn't yours. You were the stabilizer, the mediator, the one people leaned on when things fell apart. And you showed up, every time. You listened to the same stories, gave the same advice, watched people ignore it and return again with the same chaos. You convinced yourself it was loyalty. You told yourself this is what love looks like. Until one day, something shifted. You didn't pick up the phone, and nothing exploded. In fact, the opposite happened. The noise faded. The tension dropped. Your body felt different. Your breathing slowed. It wasn't dramatic. It was quiet. That moment wasn't cruelty. It wasn't bitterness. It wasn't weakness. It was your nervous system doing what it was designed to do. Dr. Stephen Porges' polyvagal theory explains that the nervous system operates in different modes. One for social engagement, one for fight or flight, and one for shutdown and conservation. When you've been emotionally overstimulated for too long, when you've given more than you've received, your system doesn't wait for permission. It shifts. Researchers call this the dorsal vagal response. In everyday language, it feels like withdrawal, pulling back, protecting energy, not because you are broken, because your system recognized depletion. Energy is not infinite, and your body knows that before your mind does. But this brings up a deeper question. Where did your system learn that people could drain you? For many of us, the answer begins in childhood. Maybe you learned to read the room before you learned to read books. You watched faces closely. You sensed tension in silence. You understood that someone else's mood could reshape the entire emotional climate of your home. Psychologist Murray Bowen described something called emotional cutoff. It often develops when closeness feels unpredictable, when love comes bundled with volatility, when safety feels conditional. So you adapted. You became hyper-aware. You anticipated needs before they were spoken. You managed atmospheres. You kept things steady. And somewhere along the way, you learned that solitude felt safer than unpredictability. If this moved you, comment 9 right now. If it didn't, comment 0. Your voice matters. Take 1 second and share it. Now, as an adult, that pattern shows up when someone gets too close. Here's where the nuance matters. There is a difference between protection and avoidance. The Centers for Disease Control report that prolonged social isolation increases the risk of heart disease by nearly 30% and stroke by over 30%. Chronic disconnection affects the body. But here's what often goes unsaid. Chronic exposure to unstable, draining, or manipulative relationships affects the body too. Stress isn't only about being alone, it's also about being surrounded by chaos. So how do you know if what you're doing is healthy? Walls block everyone. They are built from fear. They keep out the harmful and the healthy alike. Boundaries are selective. They are built from clarity. If you cut someone off and felt relief, that's information. If you felt lighter instead of guilty, that's data. Relief is not the same thing as isolation. Sometimes it's alignment. The real question isn't, should you let people in? It's, Who has earned access to your peace? And if you're honest, you already know. People who cut others off rarely do it impulsively. They do it after pattern recognition. You notice the friend who only calls when they need something. You observe the family member whose kindness comes with conditions. You see the partner who love bombs and then withdraws. You didn't guess. You watched. A 2023 study in Nature Neuroscience found that individuals exposed to early emotional stress often show heightened activation in brain regions responsible for threat detection. In simple terms, your brain became skilled at reading social cues. The University of Iowa has also documented that the frontal lobe, responsible for complex decision-making and social evaluation, often works harder in individuals with similar histories. You're not paranoid. You're perceptive. You've processed thousands of micro-patterns, tone shifts, inconsistencies, subtle signals others miss. What looks like coldness from the outside is often discernment refined over time. Society may label you distant, withdrawn, antisocial, but those labels assume that constant connection equals health. There is another word: solitude. Loneliness is the absence of connection you want. Solitude is the presence of peace you choose. You're not sitting alone wishing someone would call. You're sitting in your space feeling regulated. Your phone is quiet, and that quiet feels like relief, not rejection. Your nervous system isn't bracing for emotional turbulence. That isn't emptiness, it's stability. Some people may say you're running away, but you know the truth. You're not running from people. You're moving toward something, toward clarity, toward calm, toward a version of yourself that doesn't exist inside constant emotional noise. You are not cold. You are not incapable of connection. You are someone who learned that access to your energy is earned, and instead of letting that lesson make you bitter, you let it make you intentional. That is strength. Harvard's 75-year study of adult development found that long-term happiness isn't about the number of relationships you have. It's about the quality of them, the stability, the safety, the mutuality, not quantity, quality. So if your circle is smaller but steadier, you are not failing socially. You are curating consciously. The real risk isn't solitude. It's abandoning yourself just to avoid being alone. You stopped doing that. You chose peace over performance, boundaries over burnout, alignment over obligation. And in a world that often confuses constant access with love, that choice is quietly radical. You are not lonely. You are selective. And sometimes, selectivity is what healing looks like. And yet, this is not the end of the story. Cutting people off was not your final form. It was recalibration. It was your nervous system stepping back from overload long enough to remember what neutral feels like. Silence wasn't the destination. It was recovery. You needed space to feel your own rhythm again, without someone else's chaos dictating your emotional climate. However, protection is only the first phase of healing. Once your body learns that it is safe in stillness, a new question quietly emerges. What would safe connection feel like? Not intense, not unpredictable, not addictive. Safe, steady, mutual. Protecting your peace was step one. The next step is learning that not everyone is a threat. This is where discernment replaces defense. Instead of walls, you begin experimenting with doors. You open them slowly. You notice how your body responds. Does your chest tighten, or does it soften? Do you feel drained afterward, or grounded? Healthy closeness doesn't spike your nervous system. It regulates it. And gradually, you realize something important. Safety isn't found in permanent isolation. It's found in selective access. In choosing people who don't require you to abandon yourself to keep them close. In relationships where you don't have to perform stability, because stability is shared. You are not meant to stay alone forever. You were meant to learn the difference between chaos and connection. And now that your system knows peace, You are finally equipped to recognize what truly deserves to enter it. If this resonated with you, if you've ever stepped back from people and wondered whether you were healing or just hiding, let this be your reminder that growth is layered. Protecting your peace was never about shutting the world out forever. It was about stabilizing yourself long enough to choose better. And now, you get to decide what healthy connection looks like on your terms. If this message gave you clarity or language for something you've been feeling, take a moment to like this video so it can reach someone else who might need it. Share it with someone navigating boundaries or rediscovering safe connection. And subscribe for more thoughtful conversations about psychology, healing, and building relationships that feel calm, mutual, and real.